Welcome to this Sunday service of the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship located here in Durham, North Carolina, on the ancestral lands of the Eno, Shakori, Saponi, Sissipaha, and Lumbee people. I'm Reverend Jacqueline Brett, and whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your race, your gender, whomever you love, we welcome you. If you are here live with us in the sanctuary, please note that we are masked at all times with noses covered. You should be socially distanced in the pews, seated at least 6 feet apart all around. That's in front, behind, and next to one another in your pods. And for those of you who are here, you will not be able to see anything on the screen or which appears as video, which I'll say more about a little later. And also, now would be a great time to turn off or down any devices that you might have on your person, and we do ask that you not attempt to watch the service on your phone or any other device while in the sanctuary, or we will risk interfering with our server, which will impact the live stream. It actually sometimes makes sense if you can't see this screen, right? I'll look at the screen on my phone, but it would not be helpful, so just wanted to let you all know that. If you're new to this community, and especially if you're visiting with us today, I invite you to rise in body or spirit if you're here in this room, as you might wish, or introduce yourself in the chat box if you're live streaming, all so that we can give you an ERUUF welcome. Yes. Welcome, welcome. For those of you online, you'll find a link in the chat that will help you to learn more about us. And we also invite both those online as well as you who are here in the room to the Inquirer's class for visitors and newcomers, which takes place on Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m. Right now, that class is scheduled to be in person here on campus, but that might change over the next week. So if you're interested in attending, and we do hope you are, it's a really great series and a great way to meet the ministers, the staff, and key leaders. If you're interested in attending and wanting to make sure you're clear about what's happening next week, please contact membership@eruuf.org, and someone will respond to let you know the location of next week's class. A reminder that there is no longer a virtual coffee hour taking place directly after service, but we do have another post-service plan in the works, and I'll also be sharing more about that a little later as well. The Reverend Deborah Cayer is our worship leader this morning. Today's music is provided by Kate Lewis on piano, and Pam DeLavore is our cantor. Today's tech team is Jenny Jolly, Daniel Trollinger, and Michelle Sager. And Scott Gaskins is our sound engineer, doing double duty as he also trains a troop of new sound engineers, and we have desperately needed them, so yay, Scott. And we joyfully express our thanks to the visitor hosts and greeters who've joined us in making today's live service possible. So let us now center ourselves into this time and into this place, whether the place is here in the sanctuary or in another place where you are experiencing this online. And let us all take a deep breath in together and let it out. And so we begin with the prelude performed by Kate Lewis.
This morning's opening words are by Mark Ward. He writes, "In the first glimmers of morning, the world begins to take shape.
First vague outlines, patterns of light and dark, then colors over the branches of our leafy trees and our grasses. The brightening sky bathes a familiar landscape with a glow as it sleepily reveals itself.
To have another day, to wake from whatever night thoughts dwell within,
To rise and have the world unfold before us,
where the possible unwinds into the actual,
where dreams await their fulfilling, where we meet once again to live into the hope that gathers us. Blessed morning." Lois Van Leer writes, "We light this chalice not because we have truth, but because we each come bearing and seeking many truths. We light this chalice in connection across culture, distance, class, and language. We light this chalice that our religion may be a beacon of light, hope, and justice. We light this chalice to kindle our hearts and our minds." Now let us sing together. We're going to sing hymn number 128. For those of you present, that's the gray hymnal. Pam DeLavore will lead us in song, and the words will appear on screen for those of you who are watching online.
It's number 128.
128, yes. Before I go on, I just want to remind everyone to please have your masks above your noses, and that we need to have our mask on even when we're singing, if not especially when we're singing. Did you want to
Nope,
sing?
I just wanted to put my hat on.
So, what's going on here, right? When my two sons were toddlers and we lived in Brooklyn, it seemed our Park Slope neighborhood was constantly under construction. The boys' favorite outings were to neighborhood construction sites where they got to see their Tonka trucks come to life. And I can actually take my mask off up here on the chancel floor. This is the one place where we are without masks, or can be without masks, because we're socially distanced from everybody. But and
Good luck
I'm
with that.
tangled, which is also like one of those things that always happened when we were doing service before. But anyway, so back to what I was about to say. So my kids' Tonka trucks came to life at those sites, and we here at ERUUF are about to have a similar experience. And so we won't see a fleet of Tonka trucks come to life, but this sanctuary is about to become a small construction site as we prepare for the installation of new audio-visual equipment. So last week, I mentioned that one of the most important things we've had to learn as a staff team and as a community over the past year and a half was how to pivot, to live with uncertainty and change, and how to go with the flow, even when we didn't care for how things were flowing or how we needed to pivot. So last week, Deb and I, since this is basketball, North Carolina's basketball country, last week Deb and I started thinking about how basketball players use the pivot with determination and grace in the game. Though sometimes it can also get a little rough and tumbly. They might pivot as they dribble, or pivot when they pass the ball, or shoot a layup, or a three, or box someone out. And as much as I love basketball, it was so much easier to get Deb and myself a construction hat to illustrate all the change that's coming than attempt a basketball demonstration, right? So here's what's happening. And in the interest of time, know that I am only hitting the highlights. All of this information is available in detail on the homepage of our website, and we encourage you to read it for yourselves. So the main thing is this: the highly contagious nature of the COVID Delta variant, combined with the upcoming sanctuary construction, has required a change in our reopening plans. First, the installation of new audiovisual equipment, which begins tomorrow and will continue through mid-September, requires that the piano be moved out of the sanctuary with all the podiums, the chairs, and that the chancel floor, this floor, will be covered with protective mats. And because of how we're going to need to produce upcoming services, there simply will not be much to see or hear here in the sanctuary. So during these weeks of construction, Sunday service will take place in this room, or will be created in this room with a small worship team, and it will be available for listening and viewing on the large screen in the fellowship hall, as well as online as usual. But you won't be able to be here in the sanctuary with us. And so we know it seems odd to produce worship, then live stream it across the plaza, as well as sending it out online as usual, but we're doing this to meet the needs of people who have emphatically told us how much they need to be at ERUUF with other people. And so by watching it and being able to watch it socially distanced in the fellowship hall together, we hope that will meet that need. And second, like other institutions trying to keep people safe and local hospitals from being overwhelmed, ERUUF will require of staff, is requiring of staff, as well as volunteers who interact with the public, either proof of vaccination or negative results from a weekly COVID test, no more than 48 hours before the start of Sunday service. And so while this is a highly unusual level of inquiry, it's what's currently recommended by several religious denominations and the state of North Carolina's Department of Health and Human Services, especially for worship communities like ours. We will keep information about individuals' vaccination status confidential and secure, and we invite you too to respect people's confidentiality about this sensitive health information. We're extremely, extremely grateful to our team of 5 healthcare professionals, Nancy Henley, Ruby Long, Ross McKinney, who is here with us today, Barb Sheeline, and Nikki Yates for their careful consideration of our questions throughout the pandemic, but especially now, and their constant review of our plans. And we believe, despite all this pivoting that we're going to be doing, that it's all good in the long run. Jenny, could you bring up that image? So this is one of those times when a lot of you in the sanctuary won't be able to see what's on screen, but what's being shown is what the sanctuary will look like with the new retractable screen installed. And so if you can't see it now, it is on the website, or you can go back and look at the YouTube recording of this service and be able to see the image of what the retractable screen will look like. Thank you, Jenny. You can take that down now. And we know it's going to get even better this August. I'm going to take this off because it is just hot. It's not my calling. I just want to say it. And I'm glad for it being somebody else's. But we know that all of this is going to get better. This August, RE for Children will continue at 9:30 on Sunday morning outside the Cayer building. Julia, our DRE, is here with us this morning in the sanctuary. And this September, we're very excited to offer RE for all ages of children and adults here at ERUUF at 9:30 a.m., including the Inquirers classes. This is all in response to a longstanding request from some parents that we offer adult programs while children are in classes. So we're glad to have this unique opportunity to try it. RE will be followed by a chapel for all ages at 10:35 a.m. And then families will have the option of leaving or staying for the regular worship service at 11 a.m. And of course, we will continue to have our regular worship service online as we do now. And after worship, ERUUF's worship associates will host an online conversation about themes from the morning service. And that is still being planned, but that's what the plan is right now. So, is this perfect? No. Is some of it startling? Heck yes, we know it is. And we know that ERUUF feels like home for many of us. But this is actually a public space. And so our policies are designed for the whole community, which includes people of all ages and all health statuses. And while we always respect individuality, right now it's important that we act in ways that protect the good of our whole spiritual community. Even more, at ERUUF, we care for each other, not only by following our safety policies, but also by honoring the spirit of love, respect, choice, equity, compassion, and inclusion at the heart of our life together. As always, we encourage you to check e-news and the website for updates. While we're always hoping for the best, If local COVID conditions change, we will continue to pivot accordingly. Blessed be. Here's to the pivot. So we anyway, yes, I was really looking forward to that with my construction hat on. But anyway, next is a choral anthem by the Eno River Singers, and it's called Hymn for These Times. And again, that is on video. Those of you in the room will be able to hear it, but not see it.
Still the night and bright the stars, still the owl and soft the dark, still the lullaby a mother sweetly sings, still the hours of night morning brings. As the sun becomes the day, golden light of years betray, tender leaves abide in withered green, tears of sorrow swell the rising stream. Birds that chorus raise the morning dawn, call to the simple truth that we as one belong. Not one voice, but many voices, not one note, but still one song, not one dying, not one grieving, all are ours and ours to mourn. As the dead in love abide, we in love service find, as water faithful flows to the deep. May we unmerciful vigil keep. May we unmerciful vigil keep.
So if you're wondering why we were planning to get a new screen in the sanctuary, that's why. It's so that we can have a hybrid worship in which we all can experience what's going on in the entirety of the service. I invite you to join me for a time of meditation and prayer. And these are the words of our colleague, Joan Javier Duval. Holy mystery, silent presence, uncertain bearer of the weight of it all. In these quiet moments, we listen. We listen for the maybe still breathing, perhaps still whispering, faintest sign of the universal good. Help us, abiding mystery, to hang on, to hold on when all is in question, when all is in doubt. Help us to stay firm to our own commitments and our own promises. Lead us back into connection, back into the bonds of humanity that help us to know each other as beloved. And may we continue listening. May we keep watch. May we beckon love and justice and mercy with our own whispers, with our shouts, with our cries, until all know themselves part of the circle of love. We lift up in this moment the joys, celebrations, concerns, and sorrows of all the beloveds in our community. May you each know that we are holding you in our hearts, and may you and yours receive the blessing you most need on this day, in this present moment. Amen. Ashe. And blessed be. Our reading this morning is from a poem by poet June Jordan. She writes, "To rescue our children, we will have to let them save us from the power we embody. We will have to trust the very difference that they forever personify. And we will have to allow them the choice, without fear of death, that they may come and do likewise, or that they may come and that we will follow them, that a little child will lead us back to the child we will always be, vulnerable and wanting and hurting for love and for beauty."
There are some poems that are delightful for their rhythm and language and poetry and images, and then there are other poems that are like juicy because they're koans. And I find that poem by June Jordan to be one of the koan type poems that I carry with me and just muse over and let it inform me. We'll come back to that in a little bit. But how was your week? How was your week? Wow. Mine was spent in meeting after meeting with other ministers and leaders, all of us trying to figure out what the heck we were going to do in response to the latest pandemic developments. Woohoo! Everyone had already made plans to welcome people back to Sunday services and the bright, happy start of a new church year. It was hard to process that information, that we had to put our masks back on and when we're indoors, and that we're back where we were last spring. But now some of us are vaccinated and some of us are not, and what does that mean? And what the heck do we do now? All of us were caught quite off guard, and the reality of rising new COVID cases and hospitalizations and ICU bed shortages and trying to make sense out of all the information about vaccinated and unvaccinated and now third doses and what the heck is really going on for children. Suddenly, all of it has converged and hit like a freight train straight out of nowhere, which prompted someone to tell the old elementary school joke. What do you get when you cross a hippo, an elephant, and a rhino? A hippo, an elephant, and a rhino. A hellifino. Get it? Hellifino. Yes, sometimes bad jokes are all that will do. Our systems are totally scrambled and no one knows what's going on. This situation has produced a new creature, the hellifino. By itself, a little bit of uncertainty is bearable, but uncertainty from all directions that catches even officials and experts by surprise, well, that causes public questioning and smackdowns from Senate committee members that adds fuel to the raging culture wars. Uncertainty like this can give all of us a gymnast's twisties. We just don't know where we are in time and space anymore, and that disorientation makes it really tough to find the confidence to create plans for large groups of people whose lives may depend on what you decide. So, what can we do when every way forward seems to be blocked? How do we go forward when there's a big tree laying across every pathway, or when we get our own version of the twisties? When we don't know what's out there and how to prepare for the possible things that might happen. WWSBD. WWSBD. What would Simone Biles do? She'd give it her best. She'd analyze the video to get feedback on her performance. She would listen to her coaches. And most of all, she would listen to her body and her inner knowing, and then make the breathtaking move to stop and give herself time and space for rest and healing. She'd give herself some grace. And when she did that in front of the whole world at the Olympics, she gave millions of people the gift of suggesting that we can each do the same when we need to. Thank you, Simone. Because friends, we need to. We need to stop and get feedback, listen to what we know, listen to experts, make judgments, make adjustments, rest and heal now before we hurt ourselves. This is true spiritually as well as it is true in every other realm of life. And this is not at all news to Unitarian Universalists. But still, we find it as hard as anyone else to put it into practice. But way back in the mid-1800s, the Unitarian preacher, Theodore Parker, was in the generation that followed Emerson and Thoreau and the other transcendentalists. And like them, like the transcendentalists before him, Parker did not find value in church dogma. The transcendentalists had noticed that ideas that had once been fresh and alive over time had become hollow, empty vessels. They pointed out how original experience had hardened into customs and laws that were just really not touching anyone's inner life. And that while it had something of the sound and shape of the original experience, it retained nothing of that original essence. So like other transcendentalists, Parker was always seeking the aliveness of the original spiritual experience that he and others believed didn't just happen once long ago and stopped. They found revelation, an experience of the sacred happening continuously in all of their lives, in their experiences in nature, through their intuition, through their conversations with each other, and their ability to reason. Parker also distinguished between the dogma and rules that will not stand the test of time and therefore are transient, and the permanent, which is eternal and comes to each of us generation after generation as a still small voice, as inner knowing, as our direct personal experience of the transcendent, mystery, and wonder. Even today, Unitarian Universalism makes the claim that revelation is continuous and ongoing. It didn't happen to some ancient people and stop. It's ongoing to every human person. That's what it means to be human. It's part of our human capacity. The Transcendentalists also understood that intuition and direct experience need to be tempered and tested in spiritual community through deep listening and conversation. They met together, they talked to each other all the time. Our own practice of deep listening and asking open, honest questions comes to us directly from them. We know that no matter how profound our direct experience of mystery and wonder might be, no matter what we might hear it say to us, it needs to be run past other people. Because it's way too easy for our small perspective, our partiality, it's way too easy for that to become illusion and to become bias. And it's too easy for what we're already carrying, our biases and our habits, for that to color our personal interpretation and understanding. It's not that we can't, it's just that we can't do it by ourselves. So we don't have to tear into each other, and we don't have to tear each other down. But our honest, respectful response to what someone else shares is one of the best and most important ways that we practice our faith in community. This is one of the ways that we open ourselves to the possibility of being changed so deeply that it's actually transformative. And still, sometimes the journey is going to be slow and stalled, even with all these good things. So another thing that we could do is practice getting ready to fall. Our daughter sent a video this week of our almost 9-year-old grandson zooming down the hill on his scooter. He was shrieking that he couldn't stop, like someone in a thriller action movie. And his yelling actually made the neighbors stop and look. And she was terrified that he was really going to get hurt. When he finally did stop, all body parts intact, all the drama plus his own fear thrilled him to no end, and he grabbed his scooter and he ran back up the hill and he flew downhill again and again and again, because he's 9, and that's what 9s do, right? So my husband watched. Hello, husband. My husband watched and he laughed and he said, "She's going to have to teach him how to fall." "What?" I said. So Chris explained that when you're going so fast and you fall off of whatever you're riding, when you hit the ground, you have to roll to disperse the energy. And if you don't keep rolling, then all that energy stays with you and it reverberates, and it ends up that you end up taking the full impact. You absorb it. But if you roll, the energy will dissipate. It's going to hurt to roll. It's not like it's going to make it all better, but not nearly as much as if you're hit and you lay still and you take the full impact. He would know. He was doing parkour when his mother just called it being idiots. So he's just a runner and a jumper. And he said she should have him run downhill in the backyard and fall and roll. I wonder if it would help us to practice falling when the good things that have carried us, that we depend on, are failing us, when our expertise and our intuition come up with nothing. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for fearful hours that pass, for each new thing we learn. If we expect to fall sometimes, we could prepare the way athletes prepare through training. They learn how to fall off the beam or the bars. The way scientists prepare experiments, they set it up within a certain parameters and a rigorous set of questions looking for analysis. And then they analyze the results. They don't call them failures, they call them experiments. But to analyze and gather information and put it into new, more complete pictures, that's the purpose of that. Doing this, if we learn to do this just in daily life, it would help us keep our confidence enough so that when we do fall, when we fail, that we don't stop. We just get up, gather information, keep the learning, and keep going. There are times that what we learn from isn't in the past, but it's right here in the present, though. The future is emerging right here, right now. And there are times when conditions are so radically different that in order to succeed, we have to learn from the future as it is happening. And then we have to do something radically new and different, even if it's something that we've never even considered doing before. So June Jordan writes, "To rescue our children, we will have to let them save us from the power we embody. We will have to trust the very difference that they forever personify." Her poem has long touched something deep within me. To save our children, we first have to let them save us from the power we embody. At pivotal moments in my life, my experience of parenting showed me, not at all gently, the things that I had unconsciously assumed were just the way things are, immutably, permanently, world without end, amen, were not so. Big shock, big upset. In key moments, parenting showed me just how personal and arbitrary so many of these assumptions actually were. In other words, parenting taught me a lot about my unconscious biases. It showed me that what I had long just assumed as the way things are wasn't actually sacrosanct at all. My children were my teachers. And my most astonishing encounters with my children served to light up the places where I was holding on very tightly with great certainty. But when in actuality, I wasn't really seeing the big picture, the whole situation. I didn't have enough information, and I wasn't right to the degree that I was insisting upon. I went on to discover that I hold on especially tightly when I am gripped by fear. I think we all do that. We cling to our notions of what's important, what is right, what is good, what is proper. We cling unconsciously to what we think is owed to us. And we dig in, and sometimes we fight for it. Recognizing how tight my grip was helped me to let go enough to see what else might be possible. In this process, I learned how to do something like let go and learn to roll with new information as it was being given to me fresh out of the mouths of teens and tweens. Jordan tells us that if we can let go and trust the new and different things that show up, what we will learn will save us. As I questioned the pillars of my world, those pillars shifted and they framed a new view. And that's when my world view changed a lot. My thinking became a lot less rigid, and so did my responses, not just to my children, but to all people. I wonder if our children can also be more generally understood here simply as the future. So to save the future, we have to trust whatever arrives, no matter how new and different. I mean, we have choices about this, even if we don't know what to say or do in response to shocking developments. We could choose to trust ourselves, to see what's new that's unfolding right in front of us. It might be a little easier to take the risk of getting knocked over if we trust that we can roll with whatever hits us so that the impact isn't going to do such terrible damage. And we can listen for what love is asking of us in the moment, and we can show up with that, even when we're down and hurting. I think our values and our principles can really help us understand what love is asking. Love is asking us to respect the inherent worth and dignity of every person, balanced with the tension of thinking about the interconnected web of everything and how, everything that we do affects not just ourselves. So there's something really important about this. It's community. Community is so important to this process. In her diary, Anne Frank wrote, "I can feel the suffering of millions, and yet if I look up to the heavens, I think that it will all come right, that this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return again. In the meantime, I must uphold my ideals, for perhaps the time will come when I shall be able to carry them out." Anne Frank. She found her way through the Holocaust with her inner GPS. Her authentic experience and the meaning that she made out of it has touched countless millions of people. When your life is stripped down to its essence, this is what shines forth. What's left is your insight, your voice, your experience, and the meaning that you make out of your experience. And what always resonates with us most is not only the person who comes out victorious, but the person who is down and nonetheless fights with courage, who sometimes we only know after they've fallen. The cruel irony of Anne Frank's life is that her hope and her optimism didn't come to pass for her as an individual. But the essence of what she discovered in the attic with her family in the camp before she died of typhoid survives, and it continues to touch us even today with its truth and its beauty. Sometimes what's not possible for an individual finds itself rising again in a new field of flowering truth and wisdom that gets planted and then blooms in future communities, future generations even. That's really good for us to know right now. When it comes to the pandemic, and there's so much that we don't know, we're going to fall, and we're going to fail. If we can find a way to roll through it and hold on to our principles, our inner experience of transcendent mystery and wonder, and the meaning that we make of it, and if we continue to ask and to listen for what love is asking of us, we'll at least fail forward. And the seeds of our experience will come up perhaps for us as individuals. But if we are faithful, they will come up in the future, and they will nourish not only our children, but also future generations. May it be so. Blessed be. Every week we come to this time in this place to just touch the soul of this community. We are the people who bring our time, we give our time, our talent, and our treasure in order to make this place flourish and to be here for each other. And part of the way that we do that is with our financial contributions. Many of us offer, just have automatic pledge payments set up, but sometimes we do make payments online. And if that's something that you'd like to do, there's a link in the chat box for you to use, or you can also just find it on our website at any time. And so we'll contemplate what is important about this community to us while we listen to a little music for the offertory. Isn't it amazing how beauty in all its forms can be so healing and so restorative? We give thanks for everything about this community that is healing and restorative, regenerative, and that helps us reconnect the fragments of ourselves into a whole once more and helps us connect as a community to the world beyond our doors. I forgot to say that we are doing contactless everything right now, so we're not passing the baskets. There is a box located at the back of the sanctuary that's secure, and you could, if you wanted to make a contribution, you're more than welcome to place it in there on your way out. So we give thanks. Our last hymn this morning is number 108 in the gray hymnal. It's My Life Flows On, an Endless Song. Pam will lead us through this. be seated. The closing words are by Anne Frank, who said, "I can feel the suffering of millions, and yet if I look up to the heavens, I think that it will come all right, that this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return again. In the meantime, I must uphold my ideals, for perhaps the time will come when I shall be able to carry them out." We gather the wisdom of Anne Frank and that of countless other million souls who have ever loved and worked for the greater good, for justice and peace here upon this earth. We take all of this with us to offer as a gift, as a blessing, so that we might add to the balance of grace and peace in the world. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.